Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, take it to the next level and help others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, on the Road to Rediscovery, we are very passionate about delivering quality content that is of value to you and your personal growth. If you like what you hear, please visit roadtorediscovery.com/donate. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery.com/donate. We'll give you a shout out in a future episode. And as always, there is no obligation. We are truly, truly grateful for your listenership. My special guest is a culture consultant who teaches, assists, and executes implementation of a culture centered around dream achieving. His latest book, The Dream Machine, is an Amazon #1 bestseller and helps guide leaders to create high-performing teams and achieve extraordinary outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Dane Espegard. Hey, Dane, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, likewise, man. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and just dive into it if we can here. Can you, first off, start by helping us understand the difference between goals and dreams?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I think that I've been in the direct sales industry for 20 plus years. And so I've worked with individuals on goal setting for the majority of that. And I think that when we're asked to set goals, we'll typically set something that we know is within reach, right? A goal is meant to stretch us and see what we're made of and what's possible and kind of who we become in the process. But oftentimes it's not necessarily done that way. And it's done in a way that, deep down we want to hit our goals. So we'll set something that we know is within reach, and maybe it's 10% more than what we're doing. And the difference with dreams, I think that it gives people permission to be ungrounded and to think big without an obligation of, I must go out and do this. One of the things that I've heard in feedback from taking people through this process is, this is one of the first times in a while that I felt like I could just put things down and, we'll see what happens. And it could be a maybe someday thing. That's such a healthy exercise just to get us out of our normal box that I think that, life kind of makes it easy to stay in as the obligations of our lives, grow when it comes to all the hats that we wear, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And so there is a sense of liberty, it sounds like, or a liberating feeling of having permission to think where the sky is the limit, right? Where you can just what my company says, challenge what's possible and maybe start your impossible. A lot of creativity is fostered, it sounds like, when you think outside the box and you think with no limitations, to your point. So, Dane, I want to ask: is all those elements that you mentioned are those the elements and maybe more that make up what you call the dream culture?
Yeah, I think that yes, and so I think that creativity is a really big one. I think the anything is possible mentality is really important, and I think that's important in any organization. I work a lot with organizations that are kind of small to mid-size, and so growth is obviously really important. And I think this goes hand in hand with that, where if we're talking about the individual in terms of, hey, what would light you up and what's exciting and what's something you've never done before, it's really easy then to transition into the workplace and say, hey, let's talk about some things we've never done as a business. And I think the framework around all of this is the whole how can I, right? Where it's, hey, that might be a dream that's maybe really out there, but if it were to happen, what would it look like? And we can at least start having conversations that are fun and are uplifting and aren't the normal, hey, got to hit your numbers and you got to hit this, that type of thing. The other thing that I saw during COVID, which I thought was really cool, and I didn't know that this would be something, this wasn't an intentional thing, but when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I got to see the way that my team responded compared to the rest of the organization that we operate within. And I think for the majority, it was very normal to kind of be stuck in their tracks and say, what now, right? The way that we did business, before is no more, at least not for now. And my team just, it happened, they got to work and they immediately started solving problems. And what I recognized is that this is more of a positive spin to solution finding for problems. And so what my team had been doing for 5, 6, 7 years was that they were creating their own problems, such as, hey, this dream, that would be great. I need resources. I need the flexibility. I need the time in my schedule to be able to accomplish this. So they were, manufacturing solutions nonstop to their dreams, which is the same skill set that takes to tackle some, negative problem right in the workplace. And so it was kind of a neat parallel to see the team shift into gear when it came to that.
Wow, that's tremendous, man. I mean, for so many years, they were being creative and coming up with solutions and so forth. But in a lot of cases, in a lot of work environments, the pandemic kind of forced us to be creative, right? And force us to find a way. In my personal experience with my own, career and job, our team had to do that, and a ton of other teams, I'm sure. So to see your team flex like that is it's a testament to the cohesiveness of the team, right?
Yeah. And they've been shoulder to shoulder celebrating dreams. And so it was, I can say my forte is not innovating and finding new ways to do things. And I'm much more, when I'm at home, it's when I get to execute. I'm more of, that's my strength. And so it was neat to have fostered growth in others, right? And in a team that was able to do that, because our organization grew a ton during that period. And I got a lot of the credit for it because my name was on the business, but it was very much a, combination of what we had built over those years. And so it was really neat to see that come together.
Man, that's beautiful, man. That is awesome. So in your experience in working with different organizations, and I'm sure you've worked with different levels across the organization, when it came to introducing this dream culture model or idea, when it comes to senior executives, their mind is pretty much on, hey, what's the bottom line? What's the bottom number? We want to make sure that, we're in the black, not in the red, and productivity, KPIs, and all those sorts of things. So I'd like to know, what was the first impression from senior executives when you started to talk about dreaming?
The concept, the title of dreaming, I think sounds a little out there, right? It's not necessarily a tangible thing like you're talking about, but what does speak to senior executives is retention, right?
Right.
That's a word that has always had some ring to it when it comes to senior executives. And so I've been, and I guess part of it's the timing. Like, I've been doing this since 2012, 2013. I haven't been doing it for other organizations until after the pandemic. And so I think because I came in during that and there was already this, quote unquote, great resignation that was going on. I think that from the feedback I've gotten so far from called upper management, senior executives, has been really positive, where they're looking for things that can differentiate, their organization, and also to show, we do care about the individual, and not just saying that, but what's something that we can do? What are some, what's some value we can add? Gotcha.
Awesome. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about your book, if we can.
Sure.
In your book, The Dream Machine. First question. If you can say in one sentence, what is the primary takeaway you wish your readers to get from this book?
Anyone can set up a dream culture.
Beautiful. Anyone can set up a dream culture. Gotcha. And also, my second question, um, the word machine in your title. What is the machine part of the dream machine? Is it the culture model? Is it the dream culture, or is it something else, or a combination of things?
It's really that's a great question. I think it means more the model.
Okay.
And when I was first kind of brought onto the idea of dreams by an author named Matthew Kelly. Matthew Kelly wrote a book called The Dream Manager. He came
Hmm.
to speak to our organization. So I heard him speak in 2007,
Great.
and the book is great, and his
Hmm.
book, and it the concept there was more have somebody who has a salaried position of a dream manager in the organization. So when I set
Right.
ours up, I didn't have a budget for that role. We were a kind of a startup, if you will, or a small business within
Hmm.
the direct sales field, and
Hmm.
so I had to figure out how to bootstrap it and how to get this to be something that I was also doing. And so we figured out a way to make it really organic, kind of ground up, not from an individual that was their one role, but more
Yeah.
putting onus on the individual. And what
Hmm.
we found is when we did that, it was really this kind of machine where, when people joined our team, they just, they jumped right on it. And
Hmm.
it wasn't a lot that I was doing. It was more they were getting it from everybody else that was already, taking part in it.
I see. I see. So, with all of the top executives in the, let's say, the C suites, right?
Mhm.
You have your COOs, your CEOs, your CIOs, your CFOs, and all those guys. Do you feel that uh, we are at a point in this day and age
Mhm.
where it would make sense for companies, and I don't know if it depends on the size, but companies to have, say, a I don't know, a chief dream officer or a chief creativity officer, or somewhere along those lines, where they champion creativity, they champion outside thinking, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do. And I think, depending on the size of the business, I think that's absolutely something that should be done. And
Hmm.
another title that I would give it, and unfortunately this acronym is taken, but like chief engagement officer, right? And so
Yeah, yeah,
it's more, what's the business after? We're all after having a really engaged employee.
yes,
And those crazy statistics about like how much business is lost during March Madness,
yeah,
right? Like the amount of disengagement that there is during that. And it's,
hmm,
there's businesses that are trying all sorts of things. Hey, let's go to a 4-day work week. Hey, let's go, right? Like they're just shifting
yeah,
all sorts of things. And really, it's a lot of people that are grabbing at straws because they're just looking for something that's going to get their people more engaged. And so I don't know if it needs to be one person as much as it needs to be. What I find works great with just engagement fulfillment in general is when it is driven by the individual, right?
gotcha,
When we're doing it out of obligation, like, oh, I'm supposed to do it because I'm going to meet with the dream. Like, I think
yeah,
that there's it almost takes away a little bit of the spirit of it.
I see, I see. So, early on, before starting your company, was there any? I would imagine there was some type of benchmarking that you may have done with different companies, to see, what gets workers jazzed up, right? What gets them engaged, and that sort of thing. And did you find it, did you discover or have any epiphanies regarding dreams? Because so many companies, right, like you said, I mean, they'll throw money at it, say, "Oh, we
Yep.
just need to pay them more," or "We
Yep.
need to give them 4-day work weeks," or "We need to give them 2 weeks vacation from the minute they start."
Mhm.
Um, what type of findings did you have in your benchmarking efforts that surrounded dreams or creativity?
So, there's a combination of things that are out there. There's studies for years that have shown, like, once somebody gets over a certain income mark, and I think it's 75, $80,000
Yeah.
in the US, right? The like return on dollar raise
Hmm.
isn't
Hmm.
this, it's not dollar for dollar, right? It's like once our stability is there and most of our bills are paid, we don't get the
Right.
same return on a $5,000 raise as what we do when we're underneath that line. And
Gotcha.
so, money can be the answer up to a certain point.
Right.
Um, And then, for me, it was looking at what was happening with all of the data coming out right away during the Great Resignation. There were so many studies that came out and so
Mm-hmm.
many polls, Gallup surveys, and different things that were talking
Mm-hmm.
about, like, what do employees want and why are they quitting where they're at?
Mm-hmm.
Part of it was the entire, environment, the workplace environment shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not a business wanted to, they needed to provide the opportunity of working remote. Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and then we got to see it. And this was, I had already opened the business, but we got to see where businesses even tried to kind of push, hey, we're going back. And then it was, just kidding. The office is
Yes.
open and you can come in if you
Yes.
want. So I think what they were recognizing is, like, we can't go back to where it was at. And
No.
so there's got to be this, employees are craving autonomy. They're creating in the autonomy in the form of, don't make me clock in and clock out, like, trust that I can do the job. I'm going to do it from wherever. I want that flexibility.
That's right. That's right.
And then all of a sudden, the people that were great in let's call it the Cincinnati market, were no longer just being interviewed by Cincinnati companies. They could apply for jobs anywhere in the US. And so the competition just completely shifted. And so, most of those surveys, what they were coming back and saying is people want to be valued for who they are, right?
Yeah.
They didn't want to just be a transactional piece.
Right.
And I think part of that is also, once we switched to Zoom, most of our interactions were transactional.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your normal, hey, how you doing? How was the weekend, Aubrey? How's the family? Like, we just don't, on Zoom meetings, you don't get the same amount of that. And so we had to get creative on how we show I value you as an individual, because the way we did it before just doesn't work on Zoom.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that water cooler talk, so to speak, when you're physically in the office, it had its place, and believe it or not, I mean, we had to kind of carve a small sliver or slice of our day in the office to that water cooler talk.
Right.
And in some cases, you try to be intentional to where you are more productive and try not to make it happen. In other cases, in a lot of cases, it organically came together. I mean, you're going to just you packed your lunch, you're just going into the kitchen area to put in the fridge. And before you know it, you run into someone that you used to work with or that you do work with, and you're talking, right? So that happens quite a bit. And you're right, that can't, there's not really a place for that in the Zoom environment. So we have to be more creative in how we express appreciation and trust and gratitude for, for those workers. So I totally agree with that. So
Can I share one on that?
Sure, absolutely.
A company that I've been working with, it's called the Speaker Lab. It's a great organization they're all remote, but they're based out of Nashville. Yeah. I've been working with them on their dreams. Kind of, we did the workshop. We're working on the integration piece, and their company is just run with the dreams concept. And they were attempting to manufacture those water cooler moments. And I think Slack has something that's called like donut time or something like that, where it pairs up to random people within the organization, and it's once a month, or where you're supposed to just connect for 15 minutes.
Right.
And she said, it's not working. She goes, we thought that would work. They're just logging on, looking at each other like, what are we doing here? And so they shifted it. And what they're doing now is they're actually using 15 minutes, and it's once a month, and they're discussing what dreams that they're pursuing for, at that present time. And
love it.
Because there's so much conversation and buzz around it, it's like, hey, your topic is dreams. You're paired up with somebody else. And so there's a little bit of personal accountability in there. And they can cheer on the other person or spend their time however they want, talking about the progress, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that is cool. That is cool. And what a great recourse, but in order to pivot to that, it sounds like they had to go through that tricky or difficult time to discover that it wasn't working, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think they were attempting that at the same time that we were implementing the dreams system. And so she brought it to me, where she was like, hey, I had this idea. The operations officer there was like, I was thinking about doing this. I'm like, I think that's brilliant. I think that, and they've got I think there's 30 employees there.
Okay.
But it's been neat. Like when I had the opportunity to take their team through it,
Yeah.
dreaming's like a muscle. And I haven't found anyone that's been wildly opposed to it. There's people that, let's say, are a little resistant to it, but it's the same people that maybe are a little resistant to working out at the gym, where they're like, I just haven't done this in a long time. Right.
Right.
And then there's certain people that, you can tell they just maybe have, think a little differently, and they just jump on it. But what's been great is seeing people at different ages tap back into something that we do in our youth.
Yeah.
And then we reach this stretch where we just, we're not talked, it's not part of our day to day anymore.
Right.
And it's neat to bring people back to that, because every time I get the opportunity to do it, I'm inspired, by the people on the team and getting to hear everybody's dreams and stuff. It's been pretty cool.
Nice. So would it be safe to say that dreams and dreaming is foundational for setting the building blocks for coming up with a plan, for implementation, for execution, and follow through? I would think the dream would be that foundational piece in which those building blocks are placed on. Would that be?
Yeah, it is. And it's, I think a lot of times when people hear, and I should probably put this more into the description when somebody says, what's, difference between a goal and a dream. I think a lot of times when people hear dream, they think some large grandiose thing, right? Like my dream trip. And a lot of times dream is attached to things that are very large that we work our whole lives for. But when we go through this concept, we help people build their list. It's usually a minimum of about 100. And I've had people on our team that have over 1,000 dreams on their list. They're not all these lifelong worldly things.
Right.
There's little things on there. Like I had a guy in my team complete, he told, I was talking to him on the phone. I said, what's going on? He goes, I just completed a dream. I said, do tell, right? And he goes, I just completed flossing for 30 days straight. And so there's, there's like, it wouldn't be a dream on my list, but it was on this guy's list. And so there's little things like, hey, I've never karaoke'd at a bar. Hey, some of them are large, and then some of them are also smaller. And so what I think works with this is the whole idea behind the list is that it's giving someone a menu for just an engaged life. You think about when you've got a vacation set up in your schedule.
Yes.
The vacation itself doesn't just bring you joy. The weeks of planning, the making the decision of what are we going to do when we go, where are we going to go, booking of the flights, the enjoyment on it, and then even reliving it on the pictures, right? And so when I think about the dreams concept, like the people that are on our team that we do this with, it's like they have something every month or 2 months, some very small, and then once in a while it's a big one, but it's like they always have a next up. And so they're they've got more purpose to what they're doing on a regular basis. And I think that's really what this is all about, is just engaging the whole person and not allowing someone to just kind of like be asleep at the wheel for, oh, wow, where's the time gone?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm in total agreement with that. And, what you mentioned earlier about, oh man, I just had it. It was incredible insight, by the way, that you shared with how big or small a dream can be. Dreams are relative, right? Like you said, the gentleman who had the floss for 30 days straight, may not be a dream on your list, but it was on his. So it's relative, and they could be big or small. And I know what I was going to say. As you were talking about vacation, I was thinking, well, before you talked about vacation, I was thinking in my head, a dream that my wife and we have is to return to Nassau, Bahamas, right? We were there. We went there for our honeymoon 17 years ago, and then we went there one year for Christmas, and we haven't been since, and it's been over 10 years. And so, even though we've been there before, and it may not be like this huge grandiose thing from a vacation standpoint, we can make that a dream, right?
Yep.
Nice.
And we have, I've got, like you said, I've got places on my dreams list that I've already been, but there's a different name attached. Like, hey, I want to go back to this place with my daughter, right? Or something like that. So there's, we take people through 9 categories. And so it's not just the bucket list, like, hey, trips and places I want to experience, but there's, the professional career, there's the health, like mental and physical, there's the spiritual. So we really try and touch every part of somebody. during that dream storming process.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I appreciate you clarifying that, Dane. So, I want to briefly talk about um, the work you do in kind of bridging between dreaming and dreams and doing, right?
Hmm.
So, it's, people always say that there are dreamers and there are doers.
Hmm.
And in your space, uh, especially in the corporate environment,
Yeah.
um, in that space, dreams only go so far. Now you have to talk about doing.
Yeah.
Um, what is? Can you give us a description of the type of work that you do in helping others bridge between that dream state and the doing state, if
Hmm.
that makes sense?
Yeah, and I think the organization can play a key role here. But
Mhm,
what we, in an effort to have it not be the organization's responsibility,
mhm.
what we do when we go through, and I wrote the book in a way that any business owner should be able to take the book and just do it all on their own,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
I also do this for businesses, but the book was written in a way that, like, we didn't hold anything back. It's, hey, go and do it on your own. But
Mhm.
after, at the very end of the workshop, the last thing that we do is take action.
Okay.
And for a few years, I'd say probably the first 3-4 years that I did this with my team, we did not do this. And
Okay.
it was just, hey, we're going to talk about it, and then I'm going to live my dreams out loud. I'm going to talk about when I accomplish a dream. And that worked, but it built kind of slowly, right?
Yeah.
And people would
Yeah.
talk about theirs. And so what we started doing at the end of the workshop is that we'd take this large list that everybody had, we'd give them the time and space to say, hey, and the question that we ask is worded very specifically. It's, what in the next 6 to 12 months has the slim possibility of maybe being accomplished? So the
Mm.
idea is like, hey, look, just go through your list and make a little check by the ones that you think could be an option, and then we
Yes.
give them the space to actually do some research, and we try and get people in that moment to take action in that peak state.
Mhm.
Right? It's like,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
when we should be taking action, is when we're in a peak state.
Yes.
And then once we make the decision and take action on it, it oftentimes will happen. And so my goal when I run those is that everybody has one dream kind of baked into the cake by the time that they leave. And so at the very end, it's really exciting what we're doing. Everybody's kind of doing research. And what people find, the consensus is usually, wow, I actually thought that would have cost more money, or I thought that would have been more difficult. And just by
Yeah.
doing like a few searches online, putting it
Right.
out there to a few people that are on their team, they start recognizing, like, oh, I wanted to go. This happened for us. One of our places that we want to mark off our list is going to the Smoky Mountains. We've never been. We
Right.
just happened to share that we were going to go on a road trip this fall to the Smoky Mountains to
Mhm.
somebody at a 4th of July party a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And his response was, I actually have a home that overlooks the actual national park.
Mm.
And if you wanted to pull your camper up, you could just stay there. And
Wow.
it was like, wait, I probably know no one in my social network that has a place like that, other than maybe this one person who I happen to be. So there's just some weird connections, right? Putting it out in the
Yeah.
universe. But so we
Yeah.
take action at the end. We ask people to take whatever action. It could be sending a text to a friend. It could be, and we always have people that do this, buying a flight somewhere right there on the spot in this portion. And
Right.
so what my goal is leaving that is that team, there's going to be dreams achieved within the next 3 to 6 months.
Right.
And then when that happens, those individuals know, hey, we want to hear about it. And so then what we do is called dream spotlighting. And the idea is, Aubrey, you and your wife go back to the Bahamas, right? And the next staff meeting or quarterly or whatever that we have as a team, you're on the program. So we start every meeting that we have with, hey, you guys know what we're about. We're about, living our dreams and helping others do the same. And so, real quick spotlight. I want to give the mic here to Aubrey. He just got back from a 10-day trip with his wife to the Bahamas. Aubrey, give us the 60-second highlight. So you get to relive it. You get recognized not for what you do for the team, but you get recognized for living your life. And
Mhm.
what we find is this is a really gentle nudge to other people of like, that's awesome for Aubrey, but man, I got to get back to my list. And then I'll usually
Wow.
follow up with just a simple question of, hey, have you given any thought to what's next on your list, Aubrey? A lot of times it's,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
not yet. But just asking the question,
Hmm.
right, can
Yeah.
move somebody. So
Yeah.
that's the what we try and do to get it on them. An
Hmm.
organization has so much power to be able to, make people's dreams come true, because there's so many dreams on people's list that are just low hanging fruit that cost $100 or
Oh,
$200,
sure.
or
Yeah.
health ones that's like, hey, I want to run a Tough Mudder. We've done this on our team where we'll search and we see, oh, somebody on our team has Tough Mudder. There happens to be a Tough Mudder coming to town. And then
Hmm.
we'll say, hey, Aubrey, I saw that you have Tough Mudder on there. No pressure. If you wanted to do it, we'd split the entrance with you.
Gotcha.
Right. So
Yeah.
we got skin in the game. You've got skin in the game. But so I
Hmm.
think that's one of the things an organization can do, is continually look at that instead
Hmm.
of giving gift certificates and meaningless thank yous and Christmas things and the Harry and David,
Yeah.
fruit basket that nobody really uses. And
Right.
it's take a look at somebody's dreams list and spend $100, $200 in a targeted way that they've told you these are the things that I want.
Yeah, that makes it very intentional, right? And you're doing it with purpose.
Mhm.
So I can totally agree with that for sure. And Dane, I have to tell you, man, it's like you're reading my mind here. Um, what you just spoke of regarding an example of doing the dream spotlight.
Mhm.
Um, was it kind of alluded to my next question, and if you don't mind, I'm going to ask this
Yeah.
anyway to see if there's anything additional you would like to add to it. Okay, so in your work in helping teams, there may be a team-oriented dream within a given workplace, XYZ company, and that that goal, that extraordinary outcome that is targeted, is the dream of that team, right? So I wanted to know, how important is it for the team members themselves to realize their own dreams, to build motivation and inspiration, so that they can work for something greater than themselves to achieve a team goal? Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah, it
important?
does. And what most of the work that I do is going to be with the organization putting the spotlight on the individual.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. But to answer that question, what I've seen work really well with this is that it's kind of the, you know, uh, lead by example, lead from within type of deal, where it's like, look, if I want my team to take our team goals seriously and our team dreams
Right.
seriously, there's
Right.
not a better way to do that than honoring the individual and saying, you're valued. I want you to live the life of your dreams.
Yes.
And when I do that, and then we come back to the workplace, the conversation, like the vocabulary is very different. Anything is possible. Hey, what's our goal and what's our dream that we'd love to achieve as an organization this next
Hmm.
year, right? Because
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
goal might be a stretch number. A dream would be, hey, maybe, possibly, could we get this done? And would you guys all be excited about that? I think that, again, it's like Tony Robbins, and I'm sure he's not the first one that's ever given this quote, but I love it, which is just progress is happiness. And that's what I think the whole basis of this dreams concept is, where it's like, look, if somebody in their first year of this does 2 or 3 dreams on their list, a lot of times they feel like a failure. They're like, oh, I didn't do that many. I had 200 on there. It's like, yeah, but you probably 2 or 3 is probably more than last year. And if
Yeah.
this year you 5 or 6, you're probably going to feel great. And so the idea
Hmm.
is, can I get these individuals more independently motivated?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And it takes the whole chore of like, how do I get my team inspired? It's like, it's not, we're looking in the wrong area. It's not, how do I get them inspired here at work? How do I get them just moving? And if
Yeah.
I can do that, they're just going to think differently. Anything is possible. Look at the life that they're living right now compared to 2 years or 3 years or 4 years ago. They're
Right.
going to
Right.
bring a different thought process to work for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they will. I mean, and I wanted to I wanted to ask you what you said. I wasn't planning on asking this. I didn't even The thought didn't even enter my head to ask you this question. But something you said just kind of triggered in my head. Um, Dane, have you worked with any clients or companies that are I don't want to say starter companies, but they're fairly new. They have their business model. They have a presence. They have a brand, but they're, say, at a crossroads trying to figure out, okay, what is the true heart of the message we want to give to our customers, to our audience,
Yeah.
um, okay, if you have, then I would love to hear from you. If you could share with the listeners, what does what drivers or what potential does dreaming and dreams in that company sense have with helping a company establish, say, a vision statement and a mission statement?
hmm So I worked with a company this last December, and they had the CEO was new in their role, and that
Hmm.
CEO got brought in because he is a fix-it CEO, right? So he
Okay.
was a
Yeah.
temporary. Hey, just come in for 6 months and be the glue to get us through this next stage.
Right.
And then they brought him on full on after that. And so I got the opportunity. He brought me in almost immediately when that happened.
Hmm.
And so they just gone through a restructure, and this organization's in the consumable product market, and so they outsourced all of their production. So their team basically went from 30 to like 12.
Okay.
And so, how does everybody feel about that? Probably not necessarily the best, right? Because you're losing
Right.
some people. There might be
Yeah.
some positive in there, but
Hmm.
so the timing of it was really interesting. And what the CEO is trying to do is to really shed light on, hey, the new business is going to be different, and the
Right.
business is what that you knew before, you know, wasn't super successful, wasn't a well-oiled machine. We focused on the wrong things, and so the message was, hey, moving forward, the focus is you. And the
Mm.
focus is we want a really empowered and engaged team that's here, leaner than what it was before.
Yep.
And when we do this, we know that the answers are going to be within this room.
Hmm.
And I thought it was a really cool message. And this CEO, I got to do the Dreams workshop with their team. And at the end,
Right.
he said, hey, by the way, and he actually let me share it, which I thought was cool. I had fun with it. I
Hmm.
said, your CEO here also has pledged $250 per team member. If you take action right now and book a dream, we've got cash here for you, and he's buying your first dream to show you that
Mm.
his money's where his mouth is, right? And
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was so cool to see people like, tear up and be like, I can't believe this. And so we
Wow.
ended this really kind of like his first, and prior to me coming in, they did the mission statement work, right? They did
Okay. Yeah.
this is the new us. And I was
Right.
brought in kind of as look, we really do believe, you matter the most, and we
Hmm.
care about you. And
Hmm.
so at the very end of the meeting, what they got to go through and do is everybody pledged the dream that they did, right? And so we got to chronicle that. He hit me up about 60 days after that, and said, hey, I just want you to know our head of marketing has already completed 18 dreams on our list in the first 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
My goodness.
And so, but I found this to be true too. Every team has one like kind of rabbit, somebody who just like loves the concept and runs with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that person's really needed. And I told him, I said, I don't know who's going to be on your team, but somebody will run with it. And then that's the example that you're constantly using.
Hmm.
And it's been really neat to see that. So I'm doing more workshops with their team as they're onboarding more people.
Hmm.
But they have got great chatter on their team just about that to begin with. So,
Mm.
uh, so yeah, I think the timing of like new mission statement and this as a shift is a really good focus.
That's great, man. Oh man, what a great story. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I mean, very, very much embraced by the CEO and by the leaders of the company. So, oh man. So it sounds like, Dane, that team members and groups and individuals from who participate in these workshops, there's transferable virtues that they adapt from attending these workshops, best practices that they pick up that translates over or could translate over to their personal life and their
Mhm.
home life. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about this. And when I give people my bio, the first thing I have on there is like, husband and father of two.
Right.
And to me, like the one group that I pay a fee to be a member of is called Front Row Dads.
Nice.
And the tagline of the group is family men who own businesses. So this is really near and dear to me. I think that there's, I'd say even more value on the individual family front than there is in the business front for this. And, I had a really cool story that warmed to my heart. I got the opportunity to do a workshop for a team early May. And then I got tagged on something online, and then the CEO sent me an email sharing it with me as well. But one of the individuals on the team that went through the Dreams workshop, that next Sunday was Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And her family, it was raining wherever they lived. And family said, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "I want to go through this Dreams thing." And she just did the Dreams workshop for her family. She had grown kids and spouses. And so she did, for Mother's Day, she sat them all down and she did that. So that's the kind of stuff that, my objective with the whole book was, just get as many people focused. I think we need that more than ever right now, right? Some hope in the future.
Yes.
And the quote the whole book is written on is, when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And I think that, that's the idea behind all of this is like, let's get some power behind our day to day.
Oh, no, 100%, man. And I love that quote. I love that quote. It is the power of the present, right? That gives us hope for that future. And that power, it sounds like starts the momentum, to keep things moving. I mean, wow, what a heartfelt story and a heartwarming story. I mean, about, applying it to family life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, Dane, I really appreciate you sharing that with us, man. And so can you tell me and tell the listeners, how can they connect with you, learn more about you, the great work you're doing, and maybe pick up a copy of your book?
For sure. So I'm on all the social media platforms. I'd say I'm probably most active on Instagram. I do a lot with dreams and stuff on there. There's only one Dane Espegard that I've got a unique last name. So I'm pretty easy to find. And then my website is just daneespegard.com. And at the beginning of this year in 2022, I made the decision to say, what was my real goal with all of this was to really try and shape and shift the way that workplaces are done and get more people dreaming. So I started giving away the book for free online, just a PDF version. So if anybody wants to grab a free PDF version, they can just go to my website at daneespegard.com and then /free gift. And there's a free PDF version that they can get if they want to grab a free copy.
Fantastic. We will definitely make sure to put the direct links to your website and your social mediums in the episode show notes, so the listeners can access your website or follow you as they're listening to this awesome conversation. And thank you for the offer for the listeners, for the PDF version of your book. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, the title of that book is The Dream Machine. So Dane Espegard, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for helping me spread the word, Aubrey. I appreciate it.
Oh, 100%, man. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you have a loved one or know a coworker, colleague, a friend who seems to be just really going through some dark days of despair, they seem to be struggling at the end of their rope, not quite sure where to turn, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them. Because on the road to rediscovery, there are two things we want everyone to know. Number one, you're not alone. And number two, there's always hope. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life. And it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have. The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.